the important thing about these 3 fat loss tips is that first of all, they're very simple. Anybody who's able-bodied can do these, and it doesn't feel like you're on a diet, which is great. All right, we're back with another episode. This one, I'm going to give you some tactical stuff. I'm going to give you 3 of the best fat burning tips that don't involve tracking your food or counting calories that I've used and still use with my clients to lose 20, 30, or 40 plus pounds without avoiding their favorite foods or spending hours in the gym. And I also use these actually myself. I practice them literally every single day. And because I practice them every single day, I'm, to be honest, quite good at them. But I'm good at them because I practice them. So while I, teach these to my clients, understandably, they're not great at it because it's new. But my clients who are good at them, they're the ones who've been doing these and practicing these for a year, months, multiple years, whatever. The more time goes on, the better you get at these. But the important thing about these 3 fat loss tips is that first of all, they're very simple. Anybody who's able-bodied can do these, and it doesn't feel like you're on a diet, which is great because to an extent, you probably will feel like you're on a diet if you actually are losing weight. That's expected. But if we can decrease that sensation, that really does help because feeling like you're on a diet can be exhausting for a lot of people. So that definitely helps. So super simple, doesn't feel like you're on a diet. And also you don't have to avoid your favorite foods or spend hours in the gym. So it's pretty sweet. 2 of these 3 tips also don't take any extra time, which is something that a lot of my clients, myself included, just don't have. Everybody has time, I guess. That's a whole other argument. But everyone's busy. We all got stuff going on. Some people busier than others. And if I'm going to give people advice and give people tips, I want them to be simple. I want them to be clear. And I want them to be stuff where it's like, oh, I could literally implement this tomorrow, right now, today, And that to me is going to be way, way, way more effective than something that's a little bit more convoluted or confusing or it just takes more effort, And effort's great. You try more. Typically, you get better results the more effort you get or the more effort you give. But, as far as like low-hanging fruit, if you can start with these 3 fat-burning tips that are not going to take, 2 of them, I guess, don't take any extra time. One of them takes a little bit of extra time, but you can do it anywhere, and it's also equally as effective. Then it's just going to be easier to make this initial lifestyle change. And then maybe that has the benefit of, translating into more changes and then more changes. And then before you know it, it's been 3 months, you're leaner, you're stronger, you're fitter, you're more confident, and you're better. You're better at these specific habits, and you're on a path kind of to where I'm at, where if I'm being perfectly honest, these do feel easy for me. And that's, they weren't always easy for me. They're easy for me because I practice them every single day and continue to. So I'm always refining. While I'm never perfect with them, I'm always just getting better at it. So this kind of comes from, when I develop these, there's a number of different tips that I could offer you, but I picked these 3 for all the reasons that I previously mentioned. That being said, I have a list of 10 total of the best fat loss hacks. I call them hacks, 10 fat loss tricks, hacks, whatever you want to call it, that work really, really well. And I've used with clients for years and I continue to. And I did it over a 30-minute video presentation where I kind of go into detail and into depth as far as examples and how to integrate it into your lifestyle. I have that video available. So if you'd like to have that video for free, just send me a DM on Instagram at I am Tim Walcott. I'll send it over to you for free. and you can check it out. But I'll give you 3 of them at the very least in the meantime. Before we get there, most of the advice, and you're probably well aware of this, most of the advice around fat loss is, quote, eat this, don't eat that. It's a lot of like, what am I allowed to eat? What can I not eat? What can I eat? Is this a good food or is this a bad food? And I think having this idea of quote unquote good food versus bad food doesn't really support a healthy relationship with food or your body over the long term. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But unfortunately, it's actually it is kind of the way things are right now. Like, that's not uncommon to have a new client come to me and be like, what food am I allowed? What food am I not allowed? And, when clients start out with me, part of the program is starting out on a specific meal plan using foods that they enjoy and digest well. But then we move into more flexible options, more diverse meals. And from the beginning, I'm always promoting this idea of there is no good foods or bad foods. There are foods that are permitted on our plan at this current time and foods that are not permitted. But we will make things work, and we will definitely make those foods work in our plan as we are more consistent with the plan and we move into the next phases of the program. And I think that's important, as opposed to just like, this food's good, this food's bad, only eat the good foods for the rest of your life and you'll be fit. That fails 99% of people. So for that reason, I don't think it's a good approach. And I think promoting a massive focus on specific foods at the expense of the behaviors that actually drive fat loss is a losing strategy, because let's face it, you're going to eat pizza again. You're going to have snacks after dinner, and you're going to enjoy day drinks at the cottage or on vacation. So if we can learn how to integrate those foods, which a lot of people would look at as quote unquote bad, then you're probably going to be set up for a way more sustainable plan long term that's also enjoyable. Ultimately, I think if we can learn how to look and feel amazing while accepting this reality, instead of lying to yourself that you'll never eat, X food again, whatever that is, pizza, alcohol, whatever. And some people, I think, need to cut out alcohol, but that'd be a whole other thing. But if we can learn how to integrate some of these foods that you might have this belief that they are bad foods, but you enjoy them, you digest them well, and there is ways to incorporate them in a healthy way into a healthy nutrition lifestyle, then I think we should be doing that. It's just going to make the process a lot easier and tastier, So let's get into it. So these are the 3 best things that you can do to lose fat that have nothing to do with what you actually choose to eat. So this is not a list of, I already kind of, implied this pretty clearly, but this is not a list of just eat these foods and you'll be shredded, white fish instead of red meat, and eat brown rice instead of white rice, nothing like that. You can make all those foods work. And to be honest, all my clients have all of those foods. There's really no foods that they cut out, other than what I would recommend, if we were going to kind of split hairs here. If we were going to list some bad foods for someone, I think it's different for everyone to some extent, because I think you have to take into consideration, well, what do you enjoy? Do you have any foods that are kind of triggering or you find it hard not to binge? And do these foods support your goals? And not just weight loss goals, but goals holistically. And then, what was the last one? Oh, digest. How do you digest them? So does your body tolerate them? Some people choose to eat foods that that taste really good and they enjoy, but they feel like shit after they eat them. And like, to me, you could categorize that as a bad food for you. Doesn't mean it's a bad food for someone else, but for you, you should avoid that food. If it doesn't feel good, don't do it. I'm sure there's other foods that you enjoy that are tastier, maybe more on the junk food kind of side of things, and you might even categorize as bad food, but you actually feel pretty good if you eat a reasonable portion of it and don't eat till you're stuffed. And especially if you have it not frequently, but you kind of plan for it and you plan around it and you learn how to do that. And I think that's going to be just a way, way, way better approach. And just because if we have sustainability and you enjoy the process, you're going to be able to do it longer. I said this quote on the last episode, but I'll say it again because it applies here. The man who enjoys walking will walk farther than the man who doesn't. So if we can learn to enjoy the process, you're not constantly looking at the process as trying to get it over with as soon as you can, and just being like, this is arduous, this sucks, this is hard, and it will be hard. But if we can kind of look at the approach of like, oh, I'm learning to enjoy this process, and it will change, it will end, and I will shift into a different phase. But I am enjoying what I'm learning. I'm enjoying the process, and I'm enjoying the opportunities and challenges along the way, and I'm enjoying my food along the way, and I'm enjoying the process of getting better at enjoying it. A lot of people really struggle with doing that when they do have a weight loss goal. So, anyways, here are the 3 best things. Let's get to it. First one, eat 3 times per day with 0 snacks between. And what I mean by that, this is not something that you have to do. These are just tips and tricks. And you don't have to do this for the rest of your life. But if you can eat on a regular schedule of meal 1, breakfast, meal 2, lunch, meal 3, dinner, and time specific doesn't really matter. But if we can get onto that schedule of like eating once and then having a handful of hours with nothing in between, and then meal 2, handful of hours with nothing in between, and then meal 3, and then a few hours before bed, or whatever it may be based on your schedule, and then you wake up and do it all over again, that is going to help a ton, because this might not apply to everyone, but for a lot of folks, they aren't really on a regular eating schedule at all. They're just eating, first of all, whenever they want to, or whenever they feel hungry, and or whenever they think about it, and or whenever their schedule allows for it. So they're not deciding when to eat ahead of time. It's an afterthought. And if it's not a priority, then it just kind of ends up being this chaotic, unpredictable mess. Excuse me. And then if you're grazing on things throughout the day, where you grab a handful of almonds or a granola bar or a couple Ferrero Rochers or Hershey Kisses or whatever, chocolate bar, or a couple pops or something in between your main meals, before you know it, you could be at the end of the day and you feel like you didn't eat that much because you just kind of had a little bit of stuff throughout the day, what feels like a little bit of food throughout the day. The calories can add up pretty quickly, even though you never actually felt full and sat down to eat a full meal. And you actually could be in a situation where you eat enough calories that, first of all, you can gain weight, and then that's where you get overweight and get too fat. Or less a problem, but still a problem if you are trying to lose weight, is you just end up not seeing any changes. And you're like, my body's the exact same. I don't know what's happening. So if you can get yourself onto the schedule of like, regardless of what my foods are right now, I'm not going to change those yet, but I'm going to eat breakfast. I'm going to not eat anything until meal 2 at lunch. And then I'm not going to eat anything until meal 3 at dinner. Now, what the goal there too is to remove those snacks. But it's an important expectation to have there is that you will be hungry. And part of that is going to be a really, really good indicator of improved body composition. Just that's oversimplified, but most people don't allow themselves to, deliberately increase their appetite or allow their hunger to be higher because it's an uncomfortable feeling. So usually they're just eating anytime they feel that. So in most cases, what I would love to see, and this is something that I help my clients with, is like eat meal 1, digest it, let it move through your digestive system. And then as it moves out of the digestive system and you go throughout the day without grazing on other things in between, you will inevitably become hungry and your appetite will increase heading into meal 2. And then you'll sit down, you'll be like, whoa, I'm really looking forward to this. I've been hungry for the last couple hours. It's going to be great. Then you do that, and then you do the same thing for meal 3. And regularly feeling that appetite and hunger increase for the last hour or 2 heading into each meal. That's not perfect every time, but ideally that's kind of what most of the scenarios would be heading into each meal. Then you're going to be in a really, really good spot. So that's going to be really, really important, is actually looking for your hunger and your appetite to be higher than usual when you make this shift. And you don't even have to change your foods at all. So you don't even have to change what the foods are in the meals. You could do that down the road, right? That can be overwhelming for a lot of people. So don't even start with that. Just start with this eating schedule and then go from there. Number 2, stop eating every meal at 80% full, not 100%. So don't eat until full. Eat until just before full. For a lot of people, that doesn't sound very attractive. And if you're trying to lose weight, unfortunately, you just have to do that. It's too bad, because if you're eating till 100%, you're probably just going to be overeating your calories and you won't see any changes to your body. So one way that we can do that is we can leave 2, 3, 4 bites or more left over at each meal, or just decrease the portions from the beginning and stop the meal at the point where we're around 80% full. Most people are like, I don't know where 80% is. I don't know where it is either because we can't measure it. But you're not going to be perfect with this. But if you can at least be mindful while you're eating and eat slow, that will actually help us with the hormone leptin, which is our satiety signaling hormone that signals satiation and fullness. That is actually a little bit delayed, that hormone. So that's why if we eat quick, it's very easy for us. We've all done it. I've done it many, many times. And I'm sure you have, where it's like you eat really, really fast through a meal, and because you're probably really hungry for it or something, or you just like to eat quick and it's just a habit that you have. You eat really, really quick and then you stop eating. You're like, oh my goodness, I'm super stuffed. And we can mitigate that and be able to stop earlier if we just eat slow, because then we'll allow leptin, that satiety hormone, to actually catch up because it is delayed and signal back to our brain if we're paying attention and be like, oh, that feels like a good spot. That seems like it's around 80%. How I like to measure that for simplicity's sake, because it is hard to measure, is basically just look at it like, do I want to eat 3, 4, 5 or more bites left on this plate? But could I stop here and be fine? Right? That would be a good way to look at it, where, okay, I've eaten a good chunk of this meal, maybe half of the meal, maybe most of the meal, but I want to keep eating, but I know that that's going to take me a lot closer to 100 based on how I feel right now. Perfect place to stop. So that's where you want to be. And that takes practice. So that just takes time. So that's number 2. Number 3 here, track your steps and set a realistic number and hit it every single day. In this case with steps, more is better if you can swing it some days, but I would just count those as a bonus, right? So we don't need to be always moving more. We just want to, if you're already starting at a low number, then that's probably good to maybe slowly increase that over time. But at some point, you're probably just going to hit the same steps over and over and over again. But when you're starting out, set a realistic number. So if you're usually hitting 2, 3, 4,000 steps a day, maybe start with 4, 5, 6,000 steps a day. Don't go too crazy. Start with something where you're like, I know I can do that. I don't necessarily want to do that, but I know that's realistic. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to be consistent with that 7 days out of the week. Do that for 1 week or 2 weeks. And then I'm going to bump that up by another 1,000 steps or something like that. And that could be a really good goal. I know a lot of people will say, oh, I should be hitting 10,000 steps a day, because that was, for whatever reason, just became like this common mainstream, arbitrary advice that is great. It's a good target. But I think for someone who's starting on the low end of that, pushing up to 10K is not, it's just too intimidating at the start. It's too much to start with. So you could work up to that. That'd be great. But you could also work up to 8,000 and stay there for a while. Or you could work up to 12, 15,000 and stay there. It kind of depends on where your start point is. So track your steps. That's going to be key. You can do that with an Apple Watch, Fitbit, Garmin watches will do that, or just one of these cheap pedometer watches. Mine doesn't do it, but you can get some of these cheaper ones as well, just off Amazon, and they will just track your steps throughout the day, because we don't want to just track our steps when we're actually just going for a walk deliberately. That's going to be very, very helpful, and you probably will have to do that outside of just regular movement. You'll have to schedule in walks, but it will track all of our movements just living life. So to and from the bathroom, to and from the fridge, to the car and back, when we're doing errands, playing with your kids, at work, depending on how much you're moving at work. And we want to track all of that movement to give us an idea of what your total movement output is for the day. So there's nothing magic about steps other than just they're measurable, and they do give us a good proxy for just how much you move throughout the day. If you're going to the gym regularly and working out, then you will walk to some degree at the gym to and from your sets and yada, yada, whatever. And you might actually end up going for a walk at the gym itself, which is great, but it'll just track all that movement that you're doing. So those are the 3. Go through them again here. Number 1, eat 3 times per day with 0 snacks between. That does not involve tracking your food, counting calories, weighing your food, or even changing how you eat, changing what you eat at all. We are changing how you eat here. We're not changing what you eat. So starting with that can be really good. You're just getting yourself on a regular eating schedule, and you're cutting out what I like to call, quote, undocumented calories, which is like those snacks you don't pay attention to. It's very mindless. You're just grabbing it as you walk through the kitchen. You're grabbing it, you're grabbing a donut or a muffin while you're at work, and you literally just don't even pay attention to it, and your brain doesn't even trigger it as a memory. And then before you know it, you get to the end of the day and you're like, I feel like I barely ate anything, but you might have eaten more than you thought. So this will bring some mindfulness and awareness around your eating schedule and have that deliberate eating schedule. And to be honest, it might change every day. You might have meal 1 later than usual. You might have it earlier than usual, depending on your schedule for that day. That is fine. The goal is still just to have meal 1, meal 2, meal 3 with a handful or so hours between letting yourself get hungry for each meal. Number 2, stop eating every meal at 80% full, not 100. This one is a lot more challenging because it's a lot tougher to measure than a lot of the other ones. And it's a lot less clear. So you won't be perfect with that, but you can get better at that with time. For me, I'm a lot better at this than I used to be. And I'm better at this because I've been doing it so long and I practice it every single day. So if you can just look at this like, I'm going to start doing this and I expect myself to screw it up and not be great at it because it's new, great. That's a good expectation to have, and just expect that you'll be improving each week, each month with this. And before you know it, it'll be something that you just automatically do, and it won't take as much mental bandwidth or psychological effort. Number 3, track your steps and set a realistic number and then hit it every single day. And if you can, hit bonus steps on top of that on some of the days. You're going for a big hike with the family or with your spouse or with your partner or with your kids, or you like mountain biking or snowboarding or skiing or whatever your thing is, that'll add extra movement onto your normal steps. That's going to be a bonus. That's going to help us out a ton. So how you can kind of categorize these as well is like number 1 and number 2 are focused on the food habits, so how we eat. And then number 3 is focused on how much we're moving. So those first 2, since they're focused on and around the food, that's going to be focused on our caloric intake without actually tracking our calories. And then number 3 is going to be tracking our caloric output. Okay. So that's going to help with just a proxy for measuring how much we're moving and how much our metabolism is working. So that all 3 of those are going to be really, really important in tandem and in combination. And just to reiterate, you will not be perfect with any of these ever. And you will be very far from perfect from these when you start them, but you can get better over time. So let yourself screw these up and just take an approach of just imperfect action and just being deliberate with these. And regardless of how good you are at doing them, which you won't be good at these, you won't be good at them at the start, and that's fine. Regardless of that, just make that commitment to yourself and practice them every single day. And it will be impossible for you to not get better at these if you just pursue them every single day. They're all 3 of these, they're simple, they're actionable, and they're extremely effective. These are 3 of the 10. I use other ones as well, but 3 of the 10 that I was talking about. But these 3 in particular are some of the like earliest stage interventions that I use with my clients at the start of the program. I'll make these a lot more specific depending on the person, of course, because my coaching is one-on-one with each person, so it's very personalized to them. But to give you a general approach that I could just give to you, I don't know, who's listening or where you're at with these things, but to make this kind of more generalized advice that anyone could kind of take, these are great for that because you can just integrate these into your life consistently, and 99% of the population can do these, and you can do them right now without drastically changing your eating landscape, even what you eat, or doing a massive overhaul, which can be very intimidating when you haven't made any changes to your health and fitness. So yeah, I would highly encourage you starting with those 3 and then going from there. And if you want 7 more tips just like this, I did a 30-minute video presentation going over all 10 of those. And I would love to give that to you. It's a totally free video. So just DM me on Instagram at I am Tim Walcott, and I'll send you the link. No questions asked. And you let me know what you think. Hopefully it helps you. Hopefully you found some inspiration from this, some motivation from this. And I hope you integrate these into your lifestyle. If you do, I'd love to hear from you how it goes. And if you have questions on this, which I'm sure you may, let me know. Send me that DM on Instagram at I am Tim Walcott. And you can always send me a message through the podcast as well at Stay Peaked. And we can have a conversation over there. And I'd love to answer any of the questions that you have. Thanks again for listening. Be sure to subscribe, like this episode. And if you are listening on Spotify or Apple, please take this episode, go share it to your social media, share it to Instagram in particular. If you throw the link up on Facebook, that'd be awesome. And you can share it to your feed, but throw it up on Instagram on your story and then tag at Stay Peaked and we'll repost you. It'd be awesome to see. And we'll connect that way. It'd be great. Thanks again. Appreciate y'all. Much love.